Hello, everyone. Welcome to another conversation with a partner of the What Makes Viruses Tick project. It is Tick Bite Prevention Week, and over the past week, we've been bringing you a whole bunch of content about our project, who's involved in it, why it's really important, and how you can get involved at home. Um, this time, we're going to speak to another one of our partners, and I'm going to get them straight onto the screen. Please say hello to the Partnerships Manager of the Global Vector Hub. It is Frederick Seelig. Hi, Frederick. How are you doing?
Hello, fine, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. Not too bad. I'm going to open up this conversation the way that we normally do, which is who are you and what do you do?
Great, yeah, thanks. My name is Frederick Seelig. I'm the Partnerships Manager at the Global Vector Hub, based at the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. I have a background in medical entomology and actually I did my PhD on the molecular ecology of ticks in the UK and in Europe. That was at the University of Bath, and I finished that in 2012. I then moved to the Netherlands to do a postdoc project on emerging animal viruses that were transmitted by biting midges. So again, something that's quite a common issue in Scotland, I think. And then I moved into academic publishing, science funding, and I used to work at the Wellcome Trust for some time, and then I joined the team at the Global Vector Hub at the end of 2018. So yeah, I've been doing this job for some time, and I really enjoy connecting with other stakeholders in the field, and yeah, doing some outreach activities and talking to people working on vectors and vector-borne diseases.
Fab. We're going to talk a little bit more about what the Global Vector Hub do in just a second. But when you, first of all, like I'm involved in a project that looks at ticks, which makes me itch as it is. But when you mention midges, I like living in Scotland, my teeth were set on edge. Oh, we're getting into that season now where they're going to start coming back out. Could you tell us a little bit more about what it is that the Global Vector Hub do?
Yeah, sure. So the Global Vector Hub really came into existence after the Zika outbreak in 2015, 2016, when it became apparent that there's no a single sort of global online resource where people that were concerned or stakeholders working on vector control could access all the necessary relevant information at one point. So this was then developed, and we received some funding from the European Union through the Zika Plan project, and then later on from the BBSRC to develop the Global Vector Hub. So the main aims of our platform are really to build capacity on globally, and really to establish this global community of practice and to provide information and resources that are openly accessible and they're free to access for everyone, and really wanting to establish this enable users, and especially those who are working in vector control globally, to really make the right decisions, to have access to the most accurate information. And this also includes some really technical guidelines and documents, for instance, that have been published by the WHO or by the Centers for Disease Control, but also other summary documents, for instance, that we have written ourselves in our team, giving the user an overview of the characteristics of key vector species or key intervention methods, but also guidelines on how to conduct clinical studies, how to set up an insectary with really high containment conditions. So really enabling the global vector community to operate on a higher standard, and in the future also to provide accurate data about the abundance of vectors and also about the diseases that they transmit, to allow policymakers and anyone who's involved in public health and any decision makers to really make evidence-based decisions based on the most accurate, most up-to-date information available.
An incredibly valuable resource that can only have like massively positive benefits for all of those stakeholders, as you mentioned, that could come into it. Whether that's like mosquitoes and like them as a vector, or ticks as we're most interested in as part of the project that we are doing in Glasgow. What are the plans for the tick part of this resource?
Yeah, this is really high up on our list. So, in terms of the timeline, so we launched an early beta version of the Global Vector Hub in 2020, and we're just in the final stretch of testing before we can launch the full version of the full Global Vector Hub platform. And initially, this will very strongly focus on mosquitoes and mosquito-borne diseases, simply through historically this is where how we originated, and this is where most of our stakeholders are based. Having said that, the very strong focus for the next stage of the project will also be on ticks and tick-borne diseases. It is a major public health concern, particularly at higher latitudes in Europe, in North America, where mosquitoes are somewhat absent, or at least the disease burden transmitted by these vectors is less severe than you would see in the tropics, for instance, where you have high burden of dengue and of malaria, particularly. Whereas in North America and in Europe, for instance, you have tick-borne encephalitis, you have Lyme borreliosis, you have different other parasites and bacteria that are transmitted by ticks. You also have tick-borne viruses. There was just recently an alert around Pennsylvania in North America about Powassan virus being transmitted by Ixodes scapularis, so the closely related species to the cheap tick that we are encountering in Britain. So this is really high up, and like we said, building capacity in that field will also then expand into any resources available on tick control, tick research, but also to the general audience. I think really outreach materials and publications that help raising awareness of the issue of ticks and tick-borne diseases. And in that view, I should also add that last week we just published a short summary document that analyzed the risk of vector-borne diseases in the Ukraine and in surrounding countries. Because as you can imagine, there are by now over 2.5 million people that have been displaced into other countries, and even more people are affected and are displaced within the Ukraine. And with the warming weather in the coming weeks, there's a very high risk of these people crossing forests or other areas that are sort of very suitable habitats for, particularly for ticks, but also for mosquitoes. So we did a literature search and of available information about the disease vectors and diseases that are currently occurring or have been reported in the Ukraine and in neighboring countries. And it really seems that in general, it's safe to say, especially compared with other infectious diseases like measles or COVID-19, there's a fairly low risk. However, when it gets warmer, there will be a higher risk of people being bitten by ticks and by mosquitoes. And in the longer term, in the coming months, public health authorities at least should keep this in mind and then should take precautions. And this could really involve providing tick repellents or educating the public about avoiding tick bites or how to safely remove ticks. So yeah, quite relevant, I think, having a clear public health messaging available to the general audience.
That's not something that I had ever even, it hadn't ever clicked with me that that was going to become a major issue for displaced people in Ukraine. But it shows that kind of multifaceted way in which projects like this need to focus on engagement with kind of policymakers, but also with educators and outreach in order to make sure that we keep people as safe as we possibly can be. So that's really, really, really interesting. So thank you for sharing that. And if there's any links that we can share alongside this video to let people have a look, then we would absolutely love to do that. Bringing us, on you go.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm just pulling up the link to the news article. So it's available on our Global Vector website. There's a news article that you will see on the Spinning Globe that says a VBD report on Ukraine. So anyone can just click on this and then read the summary and also download the full report. So it's completely free to access and to read. And any feedback on this would be really greatly welcome. Thank you.
Fantastic. We'll definitely make sure to share it alongside this video. So finally, bringing us back to the UK and thinking about where I am in Scotland with our project. How do you see the Global Vector Hub and the What Makes Viruses Tick project working together?
Yeah, thanks. I think one aspect that I've been particularly thinking about is, as I said, the resources. So we have quite an extensive section already, and there's this sort of really big database of resources. It would be really great to add any further documents or any resources that your group might have, particularly on ticks, how to prevent tick bites, how to have safe tick removal, but also any outreach material. We also have a strong networking section, so there will be a really individual users can identify themselves and provide information about their background, their expertise, what they're working on. So hopefully this should really facilitate a strong exchange of information and allow really strong networking. And also discussion forums, so where people can also swap information. So this could be really something where we could provide some sort of the platform to facilitate exchange of information for anyone in your group or anyone in your wider network that might be interested in joining. And also, I think we're really interested in contributing to any outreach campaigns, any public education campaigns. I should also add we are closely linked with Arctech Innovations. It's a small company that has recently spun out from LSHTM, and they're really active in terms of vector control and educating the public. So I think there's quite a lot of expertise in our team available, and would be really happy to contribute. We could, for instance, organize any further online events. We could sort of open up the connections. We have over 1,000 registered users at the moment on the Global Vector Hub, and a large proportion of these are medical entomologists from all over the world, and a lot of them are also working on ticks and tick-borne diseases. So I think we can really act as a multiplier and help spreading the word of your initiative, and vice versa. Would also be really keen to get your input and your information and your expertise on board. Like I said, we're just starting to integrate anything on ticks and tick-borne diseases into the Global Vector Hub. Thanks.
Well, thank you so much for welcoming us in. Like, we're really excited to be involved. And thank you for taking the time today to come and have a chat with me. It's been great to hear more about the Global Vector Hub and what's to come in the future, and ways that people can find out more. For people watching at home, I hope this has given you a taste of what is happening at the Global Vector Hub and how that's going to be part of the What Makes Viruses Tick project going forward. There's still more content to come out, so please do check back to find out more about other organizations who we're working with, to find out how to keep yourself safe, especially because we're in a little bit of a heat wave at the moment. You might be thinking about getting out into the countryside, and how best to keep yourself safe. And on that note, yeah, do stay safe, take care, and we'll see you all very soon.